Not good. Using lethal.
Ice the sharpshooter.
Hostile UAV established overhead.
The things she would say were once lighthearted. And also someone who seems that picks apart sexual allegations. Sorry, what is whatever that is? What is that? What, like, is this serious? Like, yeah, she doesn't know
either. I only found out because someone in my audience
Hey, incoming lethal! Using
Enemy
lethal.
UAV in there.
Enemy field upgrade.
Give me a
Not good.
UAV.
It's pretty interesting how sort of
I'm too old to be playing these fucking games.
If you're planning on giving up, do it now. If not, get to work. West Point requesting napalm strike.
Enemy field upgrade.
Targets
Not
marked for
good.
LDBR. RTB, Black Hawk. We need to have a fucking conversation.
This person has a different identity to me, and they're trying to ruin everything around me. They're trying to ruin and degrade society, which is nothing like what you say, and yet
Sniper down!
in favor of making
say the largest right-wing political commentator on now, and he's been calling for my banning because I said that I stand 10 toes down in solidarity with the actions the Houthis have taken exclusively on the blockade of the Red Sea as a mechanism of punishment against Israel that's committing a genocide, which is, I think, as you know, I mean, I don't know how you could have an issue with that. I guess you can. I know you don't have an issue with that. I mean, I know how Americans can have an issue with that, where they say, well, they're bad and they're scary.
Well, even the UK government would allow me to say that, so, you know, I'm not, you can't speak positively. Obviously, kneecap are in trouble for what they said about Hamas and Hezbollah. Houthis are not a prescribed terrorist organization here, so people are always chanting Yemen, Yemen, turn another ship around. So, you know, I think I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying, and thinking that you deserve a ban in comparison for talking about for Holocaust revisionism. It's an interesting topic of discussion.
All right, let's continue.
So LOLCal Live, a podcast co-hosted by Keemstar, someone that previously made her life hell. But first, who is Ela actually? She's the co-host of a podcast with her husband, who's turned arguing with everyone into a full-time sport while she contributes to the show by slowly rotating in her chair. She's the founder and CEO of Teddy Fresh, a streetwear brand with a questionable theme that appears to sometimes allegedly borrow designs. Teddy Fresh also has a good causes section on their site, proudly listing charities they claim to support, which is a great thing. I appreciate them for doing. However, let's just say that
Domination.
not everything on that list
Capture the
checks out,
objective.
which I will get into later on in the video. She loves to draw. present her unique clothing style on social media.
You're getting
Locking down
captured.
Charlie.
Hold them back.
Someone that gets
Securing B.
particularly vocal when criticizing rises.
It's not like a second strike on his.
Bravo is ours.
Back cover. Locking down
Securing
the air.
zone A.
They're not.
And this is where
Enemy
Secure. Maintain current posture.
spotted blast trap.
Losing B.
Palestinian.
We're losing Alpha.
I don't want to make Ela responsible for Ethan's flip-outs, but you cannot be dismissed as a
We lost A.
it spreads false information. And when
Enemy deleted.
Hassan or defending
Losing
kids
Bravo.
took one look at her and
Taking A.
now what happens that can't speak But what about them talking about Hassan going to Gaza?
Was like, I want to go to. I'm thinking of going to Gaza.
Until I found out they don't have like a 5-star suite for me with private.
They're taking C.
I want to bet.
Securing Alpha. Lost C.
Just because.
You're getting captured. Hold them back.
Securing Charlie.
Where we were trying to actively petition the Egyptian government to open the Rafah border crossing so that Western journals could actually enter the Gaza Strip uninterrupted without actual Israeli envoys as a part of like a Israeli security operation. Because at the
Eyes
time,
on it.
allowed into the Gaza Strip were allowed
Securing C.
Taking the objective.
Israeli security, Israeli occupying force.
Locking down the air.
All objectives locked down.
Sniper smoke. Move, move.
Losing A.
Delivered
Lost Alpha.
and this is
Requesting recon above.
no
UAV commencing surveillance operation.
reporting with the
Losing
exception
B.
of, of course, the Palestinian journalists that bravely have been reporting on the conditions of
And you can't forget the brave reporting of Douglas Murray.
UAV
doing
fuel check
propaganda for the
50%.
Israeli state
oh
with the
god,
IOM.
yeah.
We lost Charlie.
I mean,
All zones. Taking
Getting
C.
captured. Hold them back.
that's actually just what the Israeli far right says to other
Objective
Israelis
capture
who
on the
Control zone C.
go to Gaza. It's
UAV returning to base.
probably targeted
Taking Alpha.
journalists.
Citrus. LDBR incoming. Locking down Bravo. We're losing Charlie. Bravo zone secure. Lost C.
Collaborating with Israel as well, so
Locking down Charlie.
all right, let's continue.
It's kind of
Enemy care package above.
thinking about going to Gaza.
I also wanted to give.
Locking down the air.
Zone C secure. Losing Bravo. They're taking C.
Enemy long rifle. Heads down.
This is also one of the most insane takes because it
Lost Charlie.
goes along with the same trope.
Enemy RCXD
Fucking left me
detected.
yet. Getting captured.
All zones lost.
They're just like
Getting captured.
monsters.
Zone Charlie locked down.
American.
Hostile RCXD in your AO.
This American
Taking A.
value hostage. Why the ever? Why
We're
the
losing
hell did
Charlie.
The Trump administration ever demand my release?
Lock down A.
That's value in that regard. From
Using stick shot.
more the, you know,
They're taking C.
Israeli envoys that are happening.
Lost C.
Secondly, this doesn't make any sense because then they would be kidnapping the World Central Kitchen aid workers, for example. Those were Westerners, right, that were working.
Fucking close. Locking down the air.
We lost all zones.
Initiating objective.
Securing Charlie. B locked down.
Not stupid. Like, you
Enemies destroyed the trophy system.
obviously understand that
Charlie secured.
Enemy standing by.
actually, you got
tablets overhead.
I've also seen there's some very disgusting rhetoric. I was just looking up his name. His name is Vittorio Aragioni, who was like an Italian who was murdered in Gaza in 2011, and he was killed
Check.
there, and people some tattoo that was like about
We're losing all zones.
Someone was saying on TikTok,
Securing
this is
Alpha.
what the Palestinians do to you even if you go. And it's just like that they're fanatical, maniacal monsters who do whatever they want to people, you know?
Priority task request.
Enemy Molotov.
and Al-Qaeda are in direct
Enemy RCXD detected.
with
Losing Bravo.
in general,
Hostile RCXD in your AO.
which has found themselves in allegiance with ISIS.
They're taking C.
Hold them back.
Of course, from a weaponist perspective, they're all dirty.
I'm on the objective.
B secured.
Fundamentalist arrows who,
Lost Charlie.
Spring mine.
100%.
They've kidnapped.
Enemy RCXD detected.
insane, psychotic, a force of true terror, sheer terror.
All zones lost.
If he entered through Rafah, which is the Egyptian crossing, and just went into Gaza like that, I think there's probably a more likely.
Sniper smoke. Move. Lock it
Taking
down
B.
here.
Hostiles reclaimed the lead.
Your trophy system was eliminated.
No, they would not. They would not do that. That is insane. But I think for a lot of people, like, this is a really hard subject.
Zip that. Front.
Securing C.
Standing more.
Taking Bravo
Getting trapped.
underway.
Hold them back.
All zones are being locked down.
Throughout history, I think.
Bravo dodge.
Of how many like
Losing B.
senior-ish, I can't remember, Jimmy Carter literally said it was more sensitive.
Taking C. Locking down Charlie.
More likely to kill him. I mean, you
Losing
spoke to
Bravo.
Hassan Shabbat, right?
Securing Zone A. Control Zone C.
We're just crazy.
All locations locked down. Take in and hold them. Losing A. Losing B. They're taking all zones. We lost A.
From
Losing Bravo.
Sniper smoke. Move. Move.
Losing B.
Hands on it.
And he
We lost B.
problematic. Meanwhile, he's over here doing like, oh, it's just a joke. Why are you being such a pussy about it?
Needless to say, I would like to turn around. They've got Arabs in government, you know, Arab bus drivers.
We're
and
losing
stuff.
Charlie.
To say that that's a space of multiculturalism, what's that? That's not my progress.
We lost all zones. Locking down Bravo. Securing C.
Never been to Gaza, never been to Israel.
We locked down.
He does not. But
Hostile RCXD. Zone C secure.
Actually knows more about space than Stephen Hawking.
They're taking
because
C.
She's been to space and he didn't. So
RCXD sighted. Enemy Molotov.
You know?
exactly.
talk.
Losing
with
Bravo.
such authority. Oh my god. You would think he's been there like 5 times since October 7th, right?
This small bit of premium content
Establish watchdog helo on station above.
consistent. Let's try and
Bravo lost.
Hassan
You're supposed to be the CIA's best. Action.
If we were to
All CXP maneuvering.
We're losing Charlie. Taking Alpha. Damn it, Crimson, that's not good enough.
Moving to evac point. Situation's full bar.
Events in the United States and its political landscape, while selling anti-Elon shirts in her own shop. And by the way, if you're watching this and thinking, oh, how come all
Hostile shooter!
well,
Textbook.
the answer to that referring back to the sun. I just follow the storyline they keep.
Got you, you
running.
piece of shit!
Interesting how we just cannot criticize him.
And then
Whatever we dare to say about him, criticism, children killers, myself, that's what they say about me. It's like, no, I'm just criticizing you. I'm allowed to criticize you and
Yeah, I think that's perfectly. Everyone is allowed to criticize me. It's just what you are spending your time on matters. I think we have a finite amount of time on this planet Earth, but also we have a finite amount of time with our platforms that we have. And if the overwhelming amount of commentary revolves around like allegations of anti-Semitism that are not warranted at all, or defense of Israel, then obviously I'm going to take issue with that criticism as well. And that's precisely the reason why a lot of people who are more knowledgeable on this issue, or at least have a different perspective on this issue, has seen these criticisms as simply deflection away from Israel's behavior and their lack of interest in actually holding Israel to task.
It's also like just sort of saying the word genocide. I think some people kind of viewed it as waving a magic wand.
Hardpoint.
I know there were a couple of people who
Go
did this
time.
with very
Capture the
different
objective.
Kamala Harris and stuff, and they called it a genocide. And now look, you wouldn't vote for what Trump's done. You just reap the rewards. I mean, like obviously,
Hostiles have captured the hard
you just
point.
reap the rewards of what the Democratic Party allowed. If when you say it's a genocide, you're not just thinking about people being killed. You are talking about the extermination of a populace. Wiped away every single social institution, like institution of social reproduction in Gaza, academics, you know, the people who could have taught younger children, schools.
Alpha, Tango, the battle word.
Hardpoint locked in. Hostile UAV established overhead.
It wasn't stopping under Biden, and
Israeli media.
Hardpoint located. Hardpoint attack. Hostiles have the hardpoint.
Like, they were shocked at how gung-ho Biden was about continuing this bombing campaign. We could all see, obviously, with our own two eyes from the impact that it was having, where he kept saying,
UAV inbound.
doors, an entirely separate conversation.
I mean, you've done this for a long time. There's no way that I can't really imagine that you thought in any capacity that this would have gone on for as long as it has. Like this level of extermination, you know, you at some point, as much as I did not think we would be months later. The most obscene
Hardpoint
crimes
identified.
imaginable, like regular extermination of human beings, and just every day.
Hostile
20,
UAV
30, 40
established
people dead.
overhead.
And it's becoming harder and harder to talk about because so much happens.
Hardpoint action. Hardpoint is secure.
Some of the most important voices against the genocide are gone, dead.
Hostiles have captured the
And
hardpoint.
increasingly we see less and less, and we have no idea what's even really happening. And, it's 15 months of this, and people are still saying.
Hardpoint locked down. located.
Building Gaza, and the university being unwilling to say, yeah, we
Hostiles have the hard
sighted.
instead of the feelings of people who are experiencing
your feelings as a consequence of your audience.
Commence counter UAV operations.
Commentary.
TACOM, launch a UAV.
Like the level you have in focusing on the actual. Israelis must feel, or
Hardpoint identified. Hostile counter UAV established above. Hardpoint active.
I will be talking about this on my
Captured the
podcast.
hardpoint. Place the SAM turret. Enemy UAV inbound.
Using lethal.
Hardpoint is secure. Enemy CUAV inbound. Hostile UAV established overhead. Hardpoint located. Marshal requesting CUAV
Hostile
back.
4th Street spotted.
Check off. Get UAV in the air. Hardpoint locked down. Hardpoint is active.
Sighting in on enemy 4th Street.
SAM turret is all up.
Hostile 4th Street spotted.
Hostiles have the hardpoint. Enemy UAV inbound.
journeys that they go through in terms of going from being liberal Zionist to anti-Zionist, but like I live in the of course I'm going to do that. It's important because it's also an issue that I also separately. As Ethan says, you can care about two things at once.
What the fuck's going on out there? Tighten up and show some spine.
The dangers of rising.
Of course, and I mean, also, by the way, sorry.
Hardpoint identified.
I'm jumping out, sniper! Maybe the higher I get,
Enemy harp
the better I
operational
shoot.
above.
You are, don't worry at all. But one of the things
Hardpoint
in
active.
this context, the first ever video
Hostiles
I
have
made
captured the
about
hardpoint.
Hila, Israel, and stuff was actually when YouTube was still doing leftovers in 2023 or something. I remember it was a video that did quite well. It was talking about birthright, but it actually came a lot from that video where they talk about how it refers to it as like a Jewish dating simulator, because one of my friends wrote a beautiful, really interesting dissertation about how basically birthright affects Jewish people's opinions. And one of the things she noted was that by virtue of going to Israel, a lot of them don't actually change their perspective about whether they think Israel is really good or really bad. But what a lot of people start to feel is a fear for the people that they meet there and form relationships with, and worry about their security, their safety, and all of these things. And it's always a thing for like Jewish people who have family there. They worry about their safety without ever considering like, and obviously because of the way that people are conditioned, they don't want to consider, well, actually, this is by virtue of the position of having an open frontier of settlement where you are consistently in other people's land. Like people always bring out, oh, this happened on October the 6th. I think one of the biggest things that doesn't get mentioned that I brought up today is Israel used an attack helicopter in Jenin for the first time since 2002 in July of 2023. I remember covering it on TikTok and doing like my first ever lives and being like, yeah, this seriously looks like something major might happen here. And then obviously nothing like, well, I mean, it was major in of itself, like what Israel did, but nothing like October the 7th scale came out of it. But it just shows you, when Israel has this open frontier of settlement, what it is fighting to defend is not for the safety of the Jewish people. It is not even really for the safety of the concept of a Jewish state. What they are fighting for is to maintain an apartheid regime and to maintain settlement of Palestinian land and kicking the can down the road until you reach a final point where there is no viable Palestinian state. And Western governments help this by constantly talking about the two-state solution, and you push towards this point, and then eventually they'll just say, well, they can't have a state. There's nothing left of their land. There's Jewish people everywhere, you know?
Yeah. No, it's utilizing the two-state solution in an effort to consistently advance the settlement project and create Bantustans and partition out the remainder of occupied Palestinian territory that Israel's illegally occupying that is what the quote-unquote two-state solution looks like. And that's precisely the reason why I always tell people, regardless of whether they're pro-Palestine or pro-Israel, that it is a de facto one state right now. This is precisely what a one state looks like as long as there is an Israeli apartheid, an Israeli occupation, which is why I advocate to abolish the apartheid and abolish the occupation and create a real one state where citizens have equal rights and equal votes and equal say. My advocacy around this from Ethan's perspective in the early conversations that we had, we didn't get to talk about that this time around, was basically, no, that would be a genocide of all Jews, because the Palestinians would come in and just like genocide all the Jews and kill all the Jews if there was a one state. That in and of itself is you know,
Team deathmatch. Pacify the AO, kill team.
More like the concept of the bigotry of low expectations that Palestinians are unable to He said, give the Palestinians one school and see if they can teach kids not to kill Jewish people. It's just obscene, you know. Palestinians don't feel that way.
They have a higher literacy rate than like 100%. It's so racist. All right, let's continue.
Enemy spring mine!
It was really hard for them to find Israeli versus the ones I found are in this video. But let's talk about the latest Ela deals with. Could it be that podcast patterns of deflecting, dismissing, and downplaying Israel's actions?
It's a down frag.
But they were specifically people, and they have history.
Something like this. Or hear about Matt
Is allowed to point it out.
Yeah, this is drama related, a little bit, and
Get a UAV on grid.
Palestine related, but you know, at other content creators participating in a snark operate a snark subreddit, and they do it for not just like just for like advancing the drama and you know making content out of it, like in a
Get out, frag!
On the backdrop of the genocide, which is surrounding Israel's genocide of Palestinians. It's just like doing drama and doing Palestinian advocacy. It's really, really shockingly depleted.
100%. Making it all about even during the debate, having to hear about the head being small. Like, who cares? I swear it's something also. It's like there were certain parts as well that I just had to skip. Like, there's not much to analyze here. It's just Ethan sort of being mean and just for the sake of it, and like it's just like it's just feeding into people who just hate you anyway. And I guess people that also their mind was. I'm sure that there are some people who actually did change their opinion because of it, but there are tens of thousands of people who went in and they would destroy you, and that he very hard to see.
The epic clips that have come out so far from repeating that he wouldn't like it. Occupation, and also was the other one the Arab anti-Semitism caused Arab Jews to become Zionists. That's those are the two that they arrived at. That stuff was like really childish. I didn't really care about that. To like say something.
They're about to break. Give them a nudge.
I didn't really entertain that at all because I feel like it's bad. It's a bad option. Let's continue. Also,
and if that's too much for you, maybe don't work for a reputable company like
Area pacified. CLD. Helo's on the way.
Accusations of anti-Semitism followed by "you need to lose your job right now."
Very reasonable criticism.
Saying that he's too state.
She was right. So she wasn't wrong. It's just, you know.
You're ugly and you're dumb and you're not funny.
Hila and Ethan have repeatedly stated that they oppose Netanyahu and his government.
But here's what I'll say about Israel. Since the first time I said it, and I'll say it many more times. The cabinet is run by genocide, led by Netanyahu, who should resign in disgrace and go to prison for being a war criminal. He's made a coalition of the most like radically conservative people that don't represent, by the way, the majority of Israelis.
They voted against.
Mentioned that we lived in Israel and we voted against Bibi. Even Ethan, we both voted.
Yeah, I was in, I think, 2 elections in both time I voted against him.
So, like, what do you guys want from us?
And here's them showing empathy for Palestine and being pro two-state solution.
The problem is the extremes on both sides. The Orthodox Jewish people cause trouble, and the terrorists.
Well, you know,
who do all the terror attacks on the other side.
You know what's really interesting about this? Ta-Nehisi Coates actually had a conversation with Ezra Klein on this exact same perspective, where Ezra basically said, "Oh, why didn't you like actually talk to any like why didn't you in the Message, his latest book, why didn't you actually cover like the plight of Israeli society? Like why did you not spend any time on the extremism of Hamas terrorists and things of that nature?" And Ta-Nehisi Coates actually had a really good take on this, where he was like, notice how you said extremist Orthodox Jews or extremist settlers, but then as soon as you talked about like the Palestinian side, Palestinian militancy, Palestinian resistance, you said terrorists, like Hamas terrorists, like that double standard, like even that packaging in this conversation is a part of the invisible ways in which a lot of people in polite society and liberal society view this conflict in an asymmetrical way, except in the exact opposite asymmetry that they are supposed to be viewing the conflict from. Because the reality of the matter is the asymmetry actually is supposed to offer more moral credibility to the side that is resisting against the apartheid state, not the side that is like escalating some of the most violent aspects of said apartheid state.
And I mean, on this topic as well, it's interesting to say ultra-Orthodox when, of course, a lot of these people do practice Judaism like a very religious people. But like Meir Kahane was literally considered a terrorist by the State Department. You know, it's a fair term to use about him if you're using it in the context of saying, well, this Palestinian group is. But we always hear about, you know, how Hamas said something to do with trees and rocks, something to that effect in their original charter.
A Jew behind a tree or something. Yeah.
In the context of Kahane, you know, I always bring it up. The guy literally said that he thought that every Palestinian should be expelled and the ones that wouldn't would have their throats slit. He And the more terrifying part is that it seems that his rhetoric is now prevalent all across Israeli society, which is our closest ally, which is held up as the moral defender of Western civilization. And he really is reigning supreme. Israel brought in a ton of laws that he tried to bring in. And the things that he suggested for Israel, other Jewish people, another member of the Knesset compared them to the Nuremberg laws. He suggested and said that
secure the objective.
Very, very, very similar to what Hitler wanted to do to Jewish people.
Hardpoint locked down.
So incredibly.
The lead is ours. Hostiles have the hardpoint. Hardpoint is secure.
Kurdish liberation.
Semtex front!
And not only that,
Taking fire!
terror supporter is because
Hardpoint identified. Hardpoint active. Hostiles have captured the hardpoint.
Going out! Get out!
so yeah.
Incoming stun!
As a requested watchdog Kilo on my grid.
Hardpoint locked down.
Get an LDVR on my mark.
On the surface, they seem to present themselves as
Hardpoint located.
on both sides, distancing themselves.
Flashbang incoming! Any more!
Hardpoint is active.
But if that's the case, why do so many civilians
Hardpoint is secure.
Semtex front! Back in!
Hostiles have the hardpoint. Hardpoint locked down.
Yet. Semtex front!
See that when you listen to Hassan.
RCXD maneuvering.
Hardpoint identified.
UAV in the... We have eyes on.
Get out! Frag!
Hardpoint active.
Semtex front! Frag!
Hostiles have captured the hardpoint. Hardpoint is secure.
Expired. UAV RTB.
Hostiles have the hardpoint. Hardpoint locked down. Hostiles have captured the hardpoint. Hardpoint is secure.
Get out! Frag! Semtex front!
Hardpoint located. Hostile scout pulse in your AO. Hardpoint is active. Hostiles have the hardpoint. Hardpoint locked down.
Virtually every I see my own I see the violence that my
Enemy RCXD detected.
Semtex front!
Hostiles have captured the hard point.
Base requesting LTPR.
Hard point is secure. Hard point identified. Hard point active. Hostiles have the hard point. Hard point locked down. Hostiles have captured the hard point. Hostiles have the hard point. Hard point is secure.
Yeah.
It's not a good.
Get out,
it's not a
Frank!
good- It's not like
Deploying RCXD.
Hard point locked down.
Lesson yet?
Hard point is secure. Hard point located.
Base requesting LTPR.
Hostile RCXD in your AO. Hard point is active. Hard point locked down. Hostiles have captured the hard point. Hard point is secure.
Fire trophy! This run! Get out, Frank!
Hostiles have the hard point. Hard point locked down. Hostiles have captured the hard point.
Get out!
Hard point identified.
Jack up! Base requesting napalm strike!
Hard point is secure. Hard point active.
Get out, Frank!
Is ignoring the unique
Hostiles have the hard point.
military sites. Most do not involve an ongoing military.
Hard point locked down.
Taking fire! Incoming stun!
Hostiles have captured the hard point.
Operating RCXD.
Hard point located.
Well, so
Hard point is active. Hard point is secure.
Semtex, run!
Enemy RCXD detected. Hostiles have the hard point.
despite the IOF's well
People are saying Israel does that on the daily.
Hard point locked down. We're ahead, but stay alert. Marshall's people are no
Going
fools.
out! Get out, Frank! Semtex, run!
2022.
Hostiles have captured the hard point. Hard point is secure. Hard point identified. Hostiles have the hard point. Hard point locked down. Hard point active. Hostiles have captured the hard point.
assaults on the Al-Aqsa Mosque. These things, Palestinian life is getting harder and harder with these. In fact, in the West Bank,
Taking fire!
I'm about to show
Hardpoint is secure.
mind about this. At least not publicly.
Hardpoint is active.
After
Hostiles have the hardpoint.
more than 3,000
Attack off! Base requesting napalm strike! Flashbang incoming!
Hardpoint locked down.
Get back to work!
690, constituting an article by UNICEF.
Got me!
Hostiles have captured the hardpoint.
Requesting recon response!
Left overhead.
Attack off! Base requesting napalm strike!
Hardpoint identified.
Lock them!
If you have something to say, you best say it.
UAV at 50%. Check.
Hardpoint active.
Jet machine ready.
Hardpoint is
Oh,
secure.
hell yeah!
All
That's how it's
threats
done!
neutralized. Scour the area. Find whatever they're hiding.
Takes or even takes from like 9/17 magazine. Ideologies represented. But having said that, saying Israel's a free society, aside from outside of the apartheid structure, as a matter of fact, is even silly, considering the reality that there is a military censor. There's a military censor that stops all newspapers and all media publications from revealing things in Israeli press.
I mean, as well, also, yeah, exactly. Even on plus 972, like the Where's That report is it's very interesting reporting. But I still think that there are parts of that about the accuracy of like, how sort of accurate it is at like targeting people. I don't believe it. I do not believe it at all. I think some of the numbers are massaged in that kind of stuff because, it has worse press freedom than even Qatar by quite a considerable amount now. It's according to Reporters Sans Frontières. It's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous.
Also, it can be seen as I think like that report is damning in and of itself for sure. Mm-hmm. It's like shocking to Americans if they ever encounter it. I've covered it, but also it creates like the reason why it would pass the Israeli censors, in my opinion, is because it creates a plausible deniability structure for the acts that the Israeli occupying forces engaging in Gaza by attributing it to an AI targeting system rather than like a deliberate killing field that they've created. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's not even individual hands that are touching the bombs. It's actually being guided and directed. Like the targeting systems are being populated with AI.
Even like a lot of how denial operates from some of the more skilled like some of the more competent deniers of what Israel does. It's always like, oh, well, it's just, a couple of people with these mad statements. You can't pull up Haaretz and say, oh, look at what this one person did, or this was an individual war crime, as opposed to ever confronting like this is a systemic pattern that comes from a whole dehumanizing rhetoric. It was always in the structure of Zionism and was always going to head to the end point of
Capturing this objective.
Secure the objective.
Existing within a space. If settlers come and say we're going to build a Jewish
Taking
state,
Bravo underway.
does it really mean that there is not a Palestinian state there? And not a
Captain the
Palestinian
objective.
state exists?
Stay
No
down.
Charlie, locked down. Marking down Bravo.
Israel is free press.
Securing B. Securing Alpha. Taking B.
The self-censoring that people
Troops to contact.
Taking Bravo
Capturing this
underway.
objective. Tactical incoming!
B secured. We got the lead. Now hold it. Securing Zone A.
it's critical that we beef up those
You guys try talking it out instead of the whole fighting and shooting thing. You fucking lying.
when they struck Israel.
Incoming lethal!
About what Hezbollah targeted in Israel from
Ow! Are you trying to shoot me? Wait, yes you are.
It is not a free country. It's comical to say this as, you know, someone who says... Incoming subject!
Take it out.
Shouldn't you talk about how, like, Haaretz will outflank New York Times?
Marshal requesting UAV tasking.
Target appears outside.
Get a one-star helo on my grid.
Losing Bravo. Bravo lost. Target down.
Capturing this objective.
Losing B. Lost B. Taking A. Securing B.
Capturing this objective. Hey,
Marking
incoming
LTV
lethal!
on target.
Hostile RTXD in your AO. Bravo is ours. Losing Bravo.
Couldn't see a documentary about, you know, kids.
I probably should not be operating heavy machines.
Take it out.
Hey, incoming lethal!
That people weren't allowed to see it, but truthfully, it does give you a chance perspective on what's happening in Gaza.
Firing Archangel.
Sniper! Hey, incoming lethal! Tactical incoming!
Bravo zone secure.
Islamic backwardness and such of these things. That's why it's Israeli society not to abolish it. I thought it was a brilliant documentary, but
Hey, incoming lethal! God, is that blood? Nobody told me there would be blood.
Pressures from the government, military censorship, and violence against journalists. A free society. What could it look like? Whose wife served in the WEF comfortably stays
Securing Alpha.
Hey, incoming lethal!
Losing Bravo. Securing Zone A. Enemy RCXD detected. Taking it.
This was a weird career pivot for me.
Initiating objective. Locked down.
There's an enemy shooter!
Losing B.
coverage of their criminal activities.
System executed.
Securing Zone A.
At least 131 media workers have been killed.
Hey, incoming lethal! Watch out, they got a sniper!
Losing Bravo. Take it.
Since Israel's war on Gaza began in October 2023, the devastating impact on journalists has been clear.
Hey, incoming lethal! Wow, I am way too late for this right now.
Documenting human rights violations, conveying the voice of the West Bank.
Tick!
National editor has accused the Israeli government of blocking journalists from Gaza because of scenes they don't want to see. Despite this, Ethan and Neela continue to force his
Losing B.
Spring mine spotted.
Securing Alpha. Losing Bravo.
Using field upgrade. Boom.
Aguinaldo calling in watchdog. Aguinaldo requesting LTV outstrike.
Losing B.
Hey, incoming lethal!
Moving with Archangel. Losing Bravo.
Are you on shrooms? Am I on shrooms?
Losing B.
And in return, there were
Direct correspondence with Hosam.
Calling in score streak.
That's another insane thing.
They're taking C.
I never got to tackle when talking.
We're losing Charlie.
TikTok
Taking
and
Alpha.
stuff.
Losing Bravo.
Good to see you.
Hassan was apparently some kind of sniping militant who's
Tack on.
just...
LTV out on my mark.
Hey, someone should make a movie about this. Or even better, someone should make a video game about this. Oh, wait. Never mind.
Representing me, or oh yeah, I don't actually think that when you've said these things, you must be able to accept that this is not as he said.
Losing B. Securing Zone A.
Interesting, the Rachel Corrie's thing.
Losing Bravo.
Hey, TACOM, get a watchdog helo overhead. TACOM, get a UAV in the air.
Losing B. We have the edge. Don't get caught. It ain't over. Take it in. Hang on. Let me call Langley. Give him some good news.
I am not made for this. I do
It
ceramics.
works that we sadly only hear when it's someone who, doesn't have a passport, doesn't have a Palestinian citizenship, basically.
Yeah, World Central Kitchen workers as opposed to the
Dad always taught us to make good on our debts. Move up.
And it's the same reason why I also will always support anti-Zionist activists inside of Israel, or even like peace activists that go and Israeli peace activists that go and like defend the Palestinians during all of by putting their bodies in front of the Israeli occupying force, utilizing the ethno-religious supremacist ideology that is guiding this that makes it so that they are not targets of the military. Like the Jewish Israelis are not targets of the military because of this supremacist ideology. So them using that as a shield is always a good thing, and I will always defend it.
Of course, and it's just this sad. I guess it's just this sad context of like we're so Palestinians are so easily forgotten in many senses, and even in I will always remember Hossam Shabbat's name and many other journalists, Ismail Al-Ghul, who was killed, but there's so many who Shireen Abu Akleh as well. Yeah. And all of these people, but there's so many others who were killed as well, and you just kind of think it's like this unfortunate thing of Israel, the way in which Israel just kills so indiscriminately. There are so many people whose names are so easily forgotten because Israel just does this constantly, and it's this really unfortunate thing of, in many ways, it kind of like I don't know, we end up in this space in which it just feels like a lot of Palestinians were kind of just meant to die unless they're kind of like international superstars. And it's kind of like a criticism, I guess, of a more general thing. You know what I mean? I don't know if I'm making any sense to you or what I'm saying,
no,
but it's just like...
No, I totally understand where you're coming from.
And it's not like a criticism of people, really. It's just an unfortunate kind of byproduct of the way Israel's genocidal crimes are so expansive.
Yeah. I mean, think about it this way. There was a photojournalist who was up for an award or was being considered for an award, and Israel assassinated her and her entire family literally after that announcement came down. I believe her name was Fatima. I can't remember her full name, but like it just happens so frequently. It just happens with great severity every single day, with great frequency every single day, that it's like it's almost impossible to keep up with.
Did you know that the guy who organized the Great March of Return, his family were targeted?
I did not know that.
So he's in an Al Jazeera documentary. It's actually very difficult to watch because he has like a very close relationship with you see him with like one of his sons, but he wrote about it. He writes about what was done to his family. He was like, why was my family targeted? He had no association with Hamas. In the Al Jazeera documentary, he like has a discussion with people who are like, we come to the Great March of Return, but we don't believe in it. We believe in like militant resistance against the state of Israel. And he's explaining to them, he's saying, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that. And he's giving his articulation, and his family home was targeted. No real explanation as to why. It just was, you know, and it's kind of like this crazy thing of, if even like talking about pacifists, okay, he was targeted. Was he a good enough Anne Frank-like character? He didn't resist, so is he the hero that we should look for? But he was killed, and you know, people will now spend their time trying to tell you that a border fence got attacked during the Great March of Return, so it was okay to snipe all those people.
Ethan did say that when he was talking to Sam Cedar, which I assume that's what you're pointing to.
Exactly, I was pointing to that, and the fact that this is, you know, really a talking point that has come up, especially since October the 7th, of trying to explain that the Great March of Return, you know, a movement that was premised around the idea of what if Palestinians walked to the border fence and looked at their ancestral homelands and protested there. And, you know, I know someone who was at them, and she spoke about what they were like and the level of violence that people experience. And one of the things that she spoke about specifically was the targeting of femurs. I believe it's femurs because it's the strongest bone in your body. And if it's destroyed, because the article talks about knees, but she was adamant that it was femurs that Israel targeted. And there are a lot of people with amputated legs from it, because if your femur bone is shattered really badly, your leg is basically done. And quite often in Gaza, it would just be amputated. And, you know, it seems that Israel did this intentionally to people to basically cripple a generation of Palestinians who would then be unable to live. And you think about what kind of space Gaza is, where because it's so densely populated, you can only build upwards. That's no kind of life for a human being. That's no kind of life where there's not the adequate facilities. And now, like, think of the context of now, where it's a mess of rubble and just everywhere and constant moving on limbs that are, you know, probably injured or harmed or like, you know, might be infected. It's just all of these things. And I think again, it's once again this thing of like, death is not all that matters. There are so many people suffering in Palestine, and yet we have to hear an explanation about why it was okay to do that, you know?
Yeah. It's it also reminds me of you know, the most peaceful, the most peace-seeking, in air quotes, Israeli official Yitzhak Rabin, and his process in the first Intifada, when he was in charge of interior security, the practice of breaking the bones of the Palestinian children who participated in the symbolic act of resistance of stone throwing. Like this became, during the first Intifada, this became like a symbolic act of resistance against these Israeli tanks and Israeli armored personnel carriers, and they would specifically demand to break bones, and they did successfully, to tens of thousands of kids during the first Intifada. And that was Yitzhak Rabin's policy. And he was seen as he was seen as the closest that the Palestinians have ever gotten to a real peace agreement. And he was even assassinated for it by a far-right psychopath who was aligned with Itamar Ben-Gvir, and also even Benjamin Netanyahu actually wanted him to be assassinated as well, like was making calls for his demise.
I have a feeling that Rabin's wife actually, to some extent, blamed Netanyahu for it, if I remember correctly. And I mean,
he responded to that by saying, I would have beaten him anyway. I actually didn't want him to be killed because I was going to beat his ass, which is true. He's not wrong. He was going to beat him in the elections regardless because of the peace process.
And there's also, this is a bit of an anecdote that comes from one of my lecturers who was an activist during the first Intifada. And one of the things that they spoke about was that they said, and there's not really much information online, and I'm not sure how you'd get this, it might only come up in Arabic, but she would always say that there's a trauma center in the West Bank that actually had to be founded after the first Intifada to deal with broken bones, because obviously if someone breaks your bones in a certain way and intentionally is doing, I mean, there's a video of it on YouTube of it being done. It does not look like a process that your legs are going to recover from. And if that's done to you, you know, that's a serious traumatic injury that has lifelong consequences. And I always bring this up as someone who has I ruptured my ACL when I was younger. It's a minor injury, you know, it can be fixed. But if I had someone to direct my anger towards, even having like slight ire at like a failure of like, you know, a doctor to diagnose it quick enough and then it getting worse, having ire towards the person who has done that to you, who has like given you a lifelong injury where you can directly blame it, you fester with that. Your entire life is defined by like, you know, being shot by someone who wanted to do that for fun, who did that because you were peacefully protesting. It creates like an anger that is within you, and we're expected to believe that there is like a correct way for Palestinians to behave and such. It's kind of obscene. It is obscene, you know?
I think what you just described is also a testament to the resilience of the Palestinians for not even entertaining that level of justified vengeance at every waking moment of their lives. Like the very fact that there is even an entertainment of a two-state solution among the Palestinian population is a true testament to the humanity of Palestinians. But that also is usually the same throughout history. There's always the same fears that you hear from the colonial power or the white supremacists that in the aftermath or during the Reconstruction era were truly terrified that the abolition of slavery would change the dynamic, change the racial hierarchy in the South, and would cause black people, newly freed black men and women, to treat white people in the same way that white people had treated them. This, of course, has never happened throughout history, with, I guess, like one notable exception of the Haitian Revolution that was very bloody in the aftermath. But outside of that, there has never been a moment where the liberated turned around and did the exact same kind of violence to those who had done tremendous violence to them. It just doesn't work that way.
Even be like a specific event of singular violence. The structure of settler colonialism that has dispossessed them, that has kept them down, is in of itself incredibly violent. It may not be direct violence. I mean, I was talking about this in the context of Luigi Mangione. Is killing someone in the street not like a great thing to be getting up to? But at the same time, who is the more violent person? The healthcare company that has inflicted a slow form of violence on millions of people, or the person who takes a singular act of violence? And to create a structure like Israel has that is systemic violence, violence of a benign kind in many cases, of you know, ruining people's day-to-day existences.
Legalizing the it's not even social murder at that point. It's just like it's like perfectly legal. Yeah, I mean, I guess social murder is perfectly legal as well, but
it's just it's very difficult to, you know, see people tell me that, like, you know, October the 7th is like this unimaginable act of barbarity, and that keeping human beings under apartheid, a recognized crime against humanity, is somehow not a kind of violence that, you know, deserves a greater condemnation or a contextualization of why October the 7th may exist. And this is something that Israelis themselves, there are like people who say this. I'm pretty sure Gideon Levy said this like pretty soon after October the 7th, that how can you not expect blowback? And he's not exactly like, you know, a massively anti-Israel character, you know, and there are like an increasing number.
No, that was the Haaretz editorial. That was what was really interesting. I remember the Haaretz editorial board had the exact same, almost verbatim, exact same take that the Harvard student Palestinian youth movement had. And in the Western world, in the aftermath of October 7th, Bill Ackman and numerous other very powerful figures that are now like permanent fixtures in the Trump administration, as a matter of fact, came out and demanded the doxing of these students for putting the burden and putting the responsibility, the culpability of October 7 directly in the hands of the violent ways in which the apartheid has unfolded upon the Palestinian population for 75 years at that point. It's crazy that there were so many crazy moments in the aftermath, in the immediate aftermath of October 7. I remember here in America where like they just straightforwardly, they had doxing trucks on college campuses that plaster the faces of students that wrote this op-ed claiming that they were like Hamas terrorists, and demanded that they never get a job ever again. It's insane.
Of course, and I mean, I get bizarrely, it was actually the first ever video I made was talking about cancel culture and saying, hey, I actually think cancel culture is pretty real if you talk about Palestine. If you talk about it, it is a major risk, and it is a cancel culture that is not going to win you like a major audience for after post October the 7th. You had a lot of people who have one video where they were like, hey, I was fired for my job on and talking about Palestine, and a lot of people will be interested in that, but then they won't be interested in what comes afterwards. It's not like Ricky Gervais or something, you know, where you get all these shows and doing a tour out of it. When it comes to Palestine, this is a serious threat to your career, and many people are scared to act in certain ways, to speak freely about a state that, you know, has perpetrated innumerable crimes, innumerable and crimes that I don't think most of us even know about, and ones that most of us will never even know about, because Israel has destroyed so much of the evidence and, you know, buried so many bodies.
Yeah. Also, this video that we're watching, while people might look at it as like simple drama or whatever, but like this is a direct participation in that exact same cancel culture structure that we're talking about, that one that has real repercussions, and maybe in this administration, as a matter of fact, one that might have criminal repercussions, because that's what the Trump administration wants to do. All right, let's keep going.
Posts from Israelis making fun of her by making pancakes with her face.
It doesn't work like that.
According to Al Jazeera, a report states the Israel-Palestine conflict to be the deadliest conflict ever for journalists. More journalists have been killed in Gaza than in both World Wars, Vietnam, Yugoslavia, and Afghanistan combined, says the Cost of War Project, with Israel's war on Gaza having 232 journalists.
But what?
He was, and I will say it once again, CPJ stated that since the war began in 2023, this has been the deadliest period for journalists since the CPJ began gathering data in 1992. Ela seems to imply that critics are uninformed. Why would Ela so confidently believe that Israel wouldn't bat an eye with Hassan coming to Gaza as a journalist? He happens to be one of the most prominent critics of Israel and quite a large voice for Palestine. Could it possibly mean that you might have a more biased view of the country when you are from there and have lived there for many years of your life?
He's never been to Gaza, never been to Israel. He doesn't know about it.
No, he doesn't.
He does not. But he talks like with such authority. Oh my God.
Maybe. Then someone in the chat calls Ela a child, and she says it's crazy.
Bloodthirsty, vile children killers are dreaming about getting people killed. What a surprise.
What reality do they live in?
It's literally just a silly joke.
I mean, can we all agree that it was a mistake for Ela and Ethan to start reading chats from a Twitch streamer that they have been obsessively harassing? While the statement is incredibly hyperbolic, it does stem from the fact that
it's ironic because I also ban people like that too. That's the other thing.
She served in the IOF, even if she had a non-combative role. And yet she continues to read the chat and start to infer that these people are just being anti-Semitic.
It's also like the Jews run everything kind of vibe I'm getting, because like, yeah, we'll send him to Israel and we'll get somebody to kill him.
But what could be the most shocking part in all of this is when Ela seems to be on the verge of revealing something she didn't intend to.
It's not a war zone, it's a genocide. Also, this is, if you want to know the constant stream of consciousness coming from Ethan Klein and Asmongold's audience, it's people like this that come in and say, yo, what's up, terror lovers? Sup, terror lovers? How big is your beheading spank bank, Hassan? I bet you love that shit. We ban this stuff on a regular basis. I'm only pointing to it right now because it just happened while we were looking at, Ethan and Hila reading shit that people are saying in the chat. Is this indicative of the overarching attitude that chat has? Probably not. I only have usually a 10-minute follow, but right now for this special occasion of a 60-minute follow. And as long as you follow for 60 minutes, you can actually talk. Now, I don't spend a whole deal of time talking about woe is me and look at me, I'm such a big victim, even though Islamophobia is a far more prevalent form of bigotry and considered totally permissible in comparison to anti-Semitism, which is also a incredibly damaging bigotry and certainly exploding in popularity, especially as a byproduct of Israel's actions being packaged as, being done at the behest of Judaism and defending the interests of all Jews. Having said that, however, there is no institutional allowance for anti-Semitism. Unless you're pro-Israel, then you can say whatever the fuck you want, as opposed to Islamophobia, a double standard that I constantly mention. And I think I might have mentioned with Ethan was, if you were to say someone should nuke Tel Aviv, you would get banned. And that's understandable to get banned for making a statement such as that. But if you were to say nuke Tehran or nuke Gaza, you can be American politician Randy Fine,
I mean, as well, it's always just this obsession with beheading and things like this to this effect. It's always an act that people view as so, specifically evil, but Israel has desecrated the bodies of human beings in ways that cannot be compared to things done on October the 7th, like literally torn to shreds, where the point of view is literally just left in a bag regularly every single day is basically what it's been. But I mean, I think Edward Said said this years ago. Islamophobia is the only kind of bigotry that is not only acceptable but celebrated. It is a vote winner. It is a vote winner to blame Muslims for the ills of your society, whereas to talk about anti-Semitism, even for someone like Corbyn, who was not anti-Semitic, it lost him, in part, played a big role in him never being elected,
Yeah.
Which is just, it's such an interesting topic.
Monster 1 and female Monster 2.
Oh, it's not a war zone, so we can't say that it's a war zone? That's not woke enough?
He's going to say it's not a war zone, it's a killing field.
No, that's what he's saying. It's not a war zone, it's genocide.
Okay, you can go.
Okay, call it whatever you want. It's dangerous. I admit that, right? So disgusting.
Hila seems like she is mocking or downplaying the fact that the situation is a genocide, as if calling it a genocide is just about semantics rather than acknowledging the reality of mass civilian casualties and displacement. So would Hila also mock the wording of these doctors that have seen it firsthand?
I've worked in a number of conflict zones in different parts of the world. I was there at the time of the Rwandan genocide. I've never seen anything on this scale, ever, and that was also the view of all the experienced colleagues that I worked with.
In northern Gaza, with the military offensive that's been happening by the Israeli forces there, we're seeing clear signs of ethnic cleansing as Palestinian people have been forcibly displaced, trapped, and then bombed.
Then Ethan's quick dismissal with,
okay, call it whatever you want. It's dangerous. I admit that, right?
Reinforces this unwillingness to critically engage with a term, reducing a grave reality to a matter of preference rather than addressing its implications. After mocking Hassan for clarifying that it's not a war zone but a genocide, what are her thoughts on Holocaust survivor Arya Nair, who says this?
You have concluded that Israel is guilty of attempting genocide.
Yes.
That's a very heavy charge.
Yes.
This one is particularly important because not only is he the Human Rights Watch founder, but he also is a liberal Zionist who personally said in the immediate aftermath of October 7 that Israel's actions or October 7 and the harrowing nature of October 7 warranted military action from Israel. This is him changing his perspective after Israel very openly and deliberately denied humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. So this was a dude who personally was on board with a military campaign, sieges that have taken place prior, what some in Israeli politics calls mowing the lawn, operations such as that one. He saw that this was like a bridge too far.
So one could raise a question. Is Hila dissecting Hassan's every word because he's crowned the H3 podcast's mortal enemy? Or is there something else at play, like a deeper discomfort with anyone who speaks out for Palestine? Because when nearly every pro-Palestinian voice ends up labeled as anti-Semitic or a token Jew, it becomes a pattern. For example, there is Matt Lieb, a Jewish man himself, comedian and pro-Palestinian voice. Or, according to Hila and Ethan,
one of these guys who's like, he's Jewish, and he loves that because he allows himself to be tokenized to the max.
Yeah.
And in response to Matt Lieb's speech in a pro-Palestinian rally, Hila's feedback sounds like this.
You're not special for wanting peace. You know that, right?
Just keep in mind, guys, Ethan and Neela always pretend to stand for a peaceful solution. But even in a peaceful speech of a fellow Jewish man, they find something to mock. Is it because he speaks up for Palestine?
I am so proud to be marching with so many Jews and Gentiles of all ages, races, genders, and nationalities who are brave enough to demand an immediate ceasefire.
Yes, this man is so brave. Just speaking objectively, what is brave about what he's doing right now? He's
Who is he
there
demanding it from?
Question, I don't know.
I'm not speaking to you as a representative of all. I am a bad representative. Team deathmatch.
Why'd you
Destroy the enemy.
Bro, he's playing the token card.
Wait, are you saying the Jews don't want a ceasefire?
No, he's doing a joke because he's a comedian. And he also is addressing the tokenization allegations by saying he's not here speaking on behalf of all Jews because he's a bad representative in general for unrelated reasons. Ethan is supposed to be a comedian. Interesting that he didn't understand what the joke was here.
No, he says, I'm not a representative.
The joke is misdirection.
Of all Jews because he's probably accused
Yeah,
of being
but
a
so
token.
far.
Control.
But not those other Jewish evil people. Like, what do you think everybody wants, dumbass?
You've fallen behind. Secular family. Lead dart.
Target ID.
At the cafe. This shit ain't working. We've lost the advantage.
We're getting there, apparently. What a hack. He's a comedian, by the way. Quote unquote. He gave back soup at the Holocaust.
Oh, I see you.
Come on, you're losing this fight.
Applauded. Really brave.
Don't get me started on the Holocaust.
I like that they're simultaneously like, oh, so brave, while also literally advocating for him to be fired. Demonstrating at least one point as to why it would require courage for people to come out and getting ostracized from your community, like getting pushed aside from your community. A lot of young Jews in my community have talked about this when they've been to the encampments where, all right, they go to college, they're freshmen. They think they can join all these Jewish campus organizations. And every single one of these organizations is like super pro-Israel. So they're like, well, I'm an anti-Zionist. Like, I have a hard time. Like, I feel passed out in these sort of organizations to be a part of it. I can't. It feels like I'm lost in my own community. So there is definitely repercussions for moral courage that you're demonstrating, but every single person, regardless of or the material consequences of speaking the truth about Israel, constantly having to deal with like people that want to fire you, deplatform you as Ethan has done. It's nothing in comparison to the amount of violence that Palestinians are subjected to.
Watch out,
speak out against that, no matter what the
Hey, incoming lethal!
He's a token. Ethan sharing Ahmed Fuad al-Khatib is not a token. Who is someone who has made untold amounts of money and gained unamounts of prestige from solely being a Palestinian who speaks out.
Weaver requesting UAV tasking.
Person who's funny. Like, that's the reason he's been.
Archangel making noise.
He's funny. He says funny things. He makes funny content around Palestine. And yeah, he's Jewish. And it's a big intervention.
From Red and Lig. Let's not forget.
I mean, also, we're literally just talking to Bad Empanada, which I understand that Ethan may not like him, but, as you've said, his videos really he's probably one of the best person at making videos, regardless of the behavior, the things he around certain aspects of this.
Oh, yeah.
His content around Palestine is truly, very, very, very good. Like, very, very good. confident in himself, which is an impressive thing in terms of never backing down from actually just knowing that what he is saying is capitalizing for actually all the people who are saying otherwise are morally reprehensible individuals.
I think changing the mind in the heart of empire recognize the importance of doing such a thing. And also, he's unimpeachable because he's in Argentina and doesn't give it.
Hey, incoming lethal! Push through! I hope I don't die. That would be super. Yeah, watch it!
Yeah, I suppose.
He just doesn't have as big of a platform too. I don't actually know. Maybe the Argentinian government will come after him. I don't know. I don't know how much protection he has.
Well, no, I guess.
I'm unfamiliar with this. I know that.
Yeah. So he's spoken about things like that, but I assume it is a completely different thing. It's not the US government, you know. And also, it's not. You're right. It's not a platform like yours. It's not a platform like yours where you are the biggest person. Someone who deplatforming of would be a massive indictment of the whole movement of saying like, hey, look at this person. Look, we've got the biggest head really of anyone who can do. We can get on Twitch.
Like I got an article written in the New York Times, which better than for hacking people in the Democratic Party. And I've never endorsed his behavior towards anyone, and have been often very critical of his mania. Unironically hurts his otherwise incredible, well-researched reporting on issues of Palestine, but like everything else, really, he's fantastic on that. Having said that, as soon as that New York Times report came out, of course, there is an endless sequence of hit.
There's an enemy shooter!
Free press, more slated to come out. The Fox News did a report on it.
Oh, sure. Shoot the funny man. Real classy.
Opportunity to move the and that only happens because this is a successful initiative overall. It is successful overall in terms of changing people's minds on this issue and many others. Like actively working to be radicalized. This platform.
Net call. Enemy watchdog helo inbound.
I want to get this negative attention. Sorry.
Actually, that's funny nice. This guy.
Not in my contract. Where's my sighting in on enemy scoring? I could probably turn this thing into a bomb.
Words so out of line.
Where it's like Israel's nation state for Jews law, the fact that it puts up menorahs, the fact that they used the Star of David in the way that the Nazis utilized the swastika at that point, and they put it on top of people's heads, Palestinian detainees' heads, that they use bulldozers to put Star of David's, like carve out on the face of the
MTC's in the red. It's now or never.
Gaza in a hollowed out like apartment complex. All of that. Say no. These guys aren't trying to say Israel is a state, even though they say it every day. And also is additionally silly, constantly claiming that all Jews are Zionists. When you say anything about Zionism,
Push through! Tactical incoming!
Stack up. UAV in the air.
Israel Netanyahu openly claimed that this is a war for civilization.
Hey, incoming!
That this represents all Western civilization in Jewish people, and that if it loses, the entirety of the West will be destroyed. So this idea that it doesn't claim to speak for all Jewish people...
Damn it, they must have hacked our com. Go dark. We'll pick you up
When
later.
do I get to drive a tank? Is that a thing?
To Holocaust survivor Stefan Kapos, who spent his childhood.
Semtex out. Bye-bye.
I say this is not happening in my name and in our name.
So I know Ela was bored by the Holocaust Museum, but would she also push back against the Holocaust survivors? Exactly what that is speak for all Judaism. In Ela's eyes, Matt Leib is doing advocating for Palestine. This man is like a teddy bear. How can you tear apart a 2-minute fun and moving speech into a hateful 8-minute analysis? And sure, Ela says she wants peace. She said it herself.
Everybody's asking for a ceasefire. That's not brave. What do you mean? You want to be brave?
What does he think that I want and you want?
He said it. They say, and they want us. We want all Palestinians to die. That's what they say.
Why would anybody think that? When did I ever say anything like that? Indicate anything like that? And why would they think that anybody in Israel even wants that? Everybody just wants to move on and be able to live their life. Everybody wants peace. You're not special for wanting peace. You know that, right?
He's brave. Yeah, I love how he
like that's like the obvious take.
But if this is how she reacts to pro-Palestinian voices, then how much weight do her words really carry? They don't only go after public figures like Matt Leib, but they also go for small content creators like this girl from TikTok. Out of respect for her privacy, I won't show her, but I will give a short summary on what her TikTok was. She describes a complicated and deeply emotional reaction towards her own Jewish community. She talks about seeing a group of Orthodox Jews, and her immediate thought wasn't just about shared identity, but about where they might stand on Israel's actions.
I don't want other Jewish people to think that I hate them, because that's not the case. I have lost so much faith in my own community, and I no longer feel this connection.
That internal conflict led to a moment of discomfort and even anger, not out of hatred for Jewish people, she's really careful to clarify, but from frustration over the lack of support for Palestine. It's not about rejecting her identity, but about grappling with how it intersects with her morals and political stance. And this is
domination.
Situation.
Go time. Capture the objective. All zones lost. Losing A.
Look out! I am Seth Rogen, motherfuckers!
Mark down Bravo.
Capturing this objective. Sighting in on enemy score streak.
Heads up. Hostile care package inbound. Hostile UAV established overhead.
Man, we definitely don't have this one.
Calling in score streak. Enemy UAV inbound. We're losing Alpha.
That's
Capturing this objective.
Losing A.
It was actually Ela who ended up very misrepresentation, even
Capturing this objective. You won't be playing these fucking games.
Taking Bravo underway.
Throwing tactical. Field upgrade.
Secured. Watch out, enemy Hellstorm launch. Take it C.
Old fighting and shooting.
Losing Bravo.
He would be. What you see?
Losing B. We're losing Alpha. Securing Charlie.
Operator establishing the first region.
Losing Bravo.
Away from the actual topic.
Lost all zone. Charlie secured. Hostile UAV established overhead. Hostile UAV established above. You gonna let a bunch of company assholes?
Clear career pivot.
Enemy UAV inbound. Losing Charlie. I don't believe in bad luck. Just bad aim. Get that.
This is a lot of running. I thought there'd be less running. That's on me, though.
That every one of his CPS call, and it turns out he just said Snarkers did it on CPS, which he has. And apparently now he's saying it again. He's saying that it was Snarkers once again.
I mean, also, it's just a kind of thing of just blaming other people, isn't it? It's just going to be easy to dismiss it. But also, Bad Empanada has clearly realized that the best way to kind of... I mean, he's openly said it. That he joked about that Ethan Klein is the rent payer thing. Like, he's joked about it, but it's just such an easy way to bait Ethan and Hila into talking about him, and also to get way more attention to his videos where he's just uploading talking about Palestine. I understand what... I think obviously it's not a way I would do it at all in terms of the sense of like how, like of some of the things he says and does. But at the same time, it is like just an example of you can direct people to learning like things about Palestine and learning how to dismiss people who have really problematic views about Palestine by just, you know, winding people up basically about something that has nothing to do with him. Like, because it's obvious that it doesn't.
Yeah.
So that YouTube is full of compilations of you guys harassing everyone left and right. Another instance of Hila using her words to show her deep-rooted empathy of the suffering of Palestinians is during the H3's Cope stream for Trump's inauguration day.
Just the other day, Bibi fired a really good guy that a lot of people are pissed about, and he fired him because they had a disagreement, and that's like so Trump-coded.
Now, I know Hila doesn't like to hear.
But she lived in Israel. She's obviously the most knowledgeable. I don't understand. Like, how could she have said, as someone who is against Israel's violence, how could she have said the defense minister during October 7, who in the immediate aftermath of October 7 said, we must shut off their electricity, their food, their water. We are fighting human animals. How could she have thought that he was a good guy, especially considering that at this point, he had already had a warrant out for his arrest for being a war criminal?
Yeah, I find it particularly difficult to believe that neither of them knew who he was. I mean, Ethan clearly doesn't in the clip, but I think that they know. And also I've seen people defend it on the basis of, well, he did want to end the war, but he wanted to end it because Israel had done enough genocide, in his opinion, that they'd achieved all they could, that there was no more point to the genocide.
Yeah.
It didn't come from like good of his heart.
This because, in their opinion, they have dealt with the situation accordingly and put it to the books.
Narc's greatest hits.
Yeah,
this is Narc's greatest hits.
Let's look into this a little deeper, and whilst we do that, keep in mind how she repeatedly tries to discredit the opinions of non-Israeli people who speak on the matter.
I think Ethan has a lot of credibility to talk about it. He lived there for 5 years and he's married to an Israeli.
No, you care about.
It's funny to like sit in America and think that you know better than somebody who lives in Israel.
Yoav Gallant was a military officer that served as Israel's Minister of Defense and was also the same guy that said that he had ordered a complete siege on the Gaza Strip. There will be no electricity, no food, no water, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are fighting human animals and we are acting accordingly. Gallant's declaration of a complete siege where
Just good guy things, you know, even from the most like liberalized brain rot Marvel Cinematic Universe ass of like approaching politics, like that's not what a good guy would say. I don't think, you know, that's what a really good guy would say, like the best guy actually.
But also I think it's thinking about, you know, you mentioned how you use your platform to Ethan. You know, you think that you might know who this guy is if you cared about the Gaza genocide from talking about saying, hey, this is a pretty... Like, one of the things Ilan Pape always brings up as one of the reasons he's somewhat hopeful about, you know, what's happening in Palestine is he said, if you had told me or any other expert of what's going on in the about Palestine, that even in 2010, that one day Israel would be brought before the ICJ or even the ICC. If you told me those things, I would be shocked. I wouldn't believe those words coming out of your mouth because there's no way they would, because they're protected. And to have just, you know, to be someone who says that you've dealt with Palestine when you know, that neither of you even knew that he'd maybe said that allegedly, you know? And Ethan also defended it on his story 100%. He said that something about like him wanting to end the war, and it was in the context of October the 7th, so it was okay to say, in spite of the fact that, you know, it wasn't just a statement. They did starve Gaza. They did turn the energy, the electricity and such off.
Yeah.
Cuts off all of these necessities amounts to collective punishment, which points to a potential breach of Geneva Conventions.
I don't think you guys understand Israel. It doesn't work like that.
Calling an entire population human animals is deeply disturbing.
A really good guy. The
dehumanization is a key tactic used to justify ethnic cleansing.
Shouldn't have used that word. That was a bad choice.
Alas, Ethan would soon find the error of their ways and created an apology video for this wrongful judgment. Now, usually apology videos are titled things like this. So what title do you think Hila and Ethan chose for their video? Here are 4 options. What do you think it's going to be? Making things right. Let's move on. Oops, I just like the vibes. I'm suing. Which of these very realistic titles is going to be the title for the video where they apologize for the mistake of calling Yoav Galan?
Okay, I'm gonna go. I'm suing.
I think it's I'm suing as well.
That's what I think. The answer is yes. The video where you can find Hila apologizing and explaining why she said Yoav Galant, a far-right genocide enabler, was a great guy, is titled Hassan is a Weasley Little Liar. The stuff writes itself. So let's have a look at Hila addressing this error.
Hello. I'm here to address something that happened on Thursday's show. We were doing our post-election cope.
I genuinely don't understand how his fan base doesn't recognize what the going on at that point, where it's just like, how do you look at this? How do you look at this and go like, yeah, no, this is normal and not an unhealthy obsession? It's like if every single time I was attacked by like Fox News, and some fans in my community have tried to say like, no, Ethan is the reason why Fox News is attacking you. And I'm like, no, I don't think that's the case. I think they're attacking me because New York Times wrote a positive report on me. I'm sure they'll use Ethan's commentary in the process, but I don't think he is the figure, the shadowy figure guiding these things, right? It's because like there is a militant Hasbara operation in a network of newspapers in the West that will immediately tackle any kind of positive sentiment demonstrated towards someone who has expressed negative feelings towards the state of Israel. That's it. And like, imagine every time I get criticized, though, I was like, Ethan is so much worse or something. I don't know. Ethan is doing this.
I mean, also, I guess it's just the fact of like, yesterday he was trying to call you a liar over and over again, and I'm not really quite sure as to what you'd actually lied about, as to what these serious lies are.
Yeah,
and just cultivating.
He openly admitted that he was wrong, and he lied himself about me.
Yeah, of course, and the amount of lies and the amount of just things that are said and just done over and over again without willingness to take accountability, yet when a debater is in front of him, someone who actually knows what he's talking about, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He can just admit it then and never confront the criticism. And actually, the thing I wanted to mention because I kind of forgot for a second, is it's kind of the dangerous part, though, isn't it? When you're telling your audience how beautiful and multicultural Israel is, and they are willing to believe anything you say or do, no matter how much it's just clearly not very congruent with the truth. Kind of shows you why it might be quite a dangerous thing to not really speak very critically of Israel.
Yeah.
Stream. And
okay, hold on a second. Where is Hila? Why do we have this guy talking about this when Hila was the one that said
a really good guy?
Cabinet, who just yesterday was fired by Netanyahu because he wanted to end the war, and Netanyahu wants to continue the war, and therefore he fired him. Once he was fired, people in Israel took to the streets and are protesting, being a good thing.
Okay, here is when she comes out to talk. We are 4 minutes in. Now, I'm just gonna put this over here and okay.
I feel like the reason I brought it up was mainly to express the frustration with BB and him firing the one guy that was somewhat, attempting at moderation. It wasn't really so much to say Gallant is a good guy. I shouldn't have used that word. That was a bad choice on my part, considering stuff that he has said that I was not even thinking of. Really coming from the concerning feeling of like, we have Trump in office and BB just fired the guy that is opposing him. That's all I was trying to say, but I do understand that was not a good choice of words and I would not have said that again. So I'm stepping away for a little while from being on camera and being on the podcast. It's too much and it's not fair for everybody. And yeah.
So, 52 seconds and 96 milliseconds of Ila apologizing. She's gone now, and we're 5 minutes in. The video is 14 minutes long. What could you possibly be talking about? All right, the video is called Hassan Piker is a Weasley. Okay.
What a liar, dude.
Yeah, never mind. But if you can spend hours on a podcast but can't even take more than a minute to sincerely address your mistake and be the one that explains the error, it just makes you such a qualified speaker on the topic. And then this guy,
Little liar.
to explain your wrongdoing, it doesn't look like a good time to outsource accountability. Kudos to H3 for recognizing that you just praised the genocide enabler. From all the feedback you received from the people, that's a thumbs up on their video from me. However, the explanation for this error sort of exposes their neglect in informing themselves of what's going on. This is what Ethan says before Ila makes her appearance.
Later, for whatever reason, this is the same guy who's advocating for the war to end in Israel. And Ila, looking over the news, sees that people are rioting, that people are upset, and that people who want the war to end are upset that he got fired. And that's basically all that happened. We're talking about the fact that he's the only person that wants to end the war.
Yeah,
and
he's the only person. And that wasn't even the major point of contention. It was actually, I believe, the Haredi conscription that was a big deal. It wasn't actually. I might be mixing up my stories at this point because I've been covering this. I've been covering this genocide every single day, but I'm fairly certain that a big part of the reason